You may feel like life has already written its final chapter about you. You may look at your past and see mistakes that still haunt your thoughts, choices that did not turn out the way you planned, prayers that seem unanswered, and doors that closed without explanation. But the truth you need to hear today is simple and powerful. God is not finished with you. What you see as failure, God sees as formation. What you call delay, God calls development. Every season you have walked through, including the painful ones, has been shaping you for what is coming next. There are moments when life convinces you that time has run out, that opportunities have passed you by, and that you are now living in the shadow of what could have been. But God does not operate on human timelines. He is not limited by age, background, or past decisions. He does not look at where you are and decide what you deserve based on your mistakes. He looks at you through the lens of purpose. If He allowed you to wake up today, it means there is still assignment attached to your life. Some of the things that didn't work out were never meant to work out. They were too small, too limiting, and too fragile to carry the weight of where God is taking you. You thought you lost something important, but God was actually removing what would have restricted your growth. The ending you are grieving may be the very thing that made room for a greater beginning. God will sometimes close doors you prayed would stay open because He sees danger, distraction, or delay on the other side. You are not disqualified because you struggled. You are not forgotten because you failed. You are not overlooked because others moved ahead faster than you. God's hand is still on your life. Even when you cannot feel it, He works silently in seasons when it feels like nothing is happening. While you were waiting, He was strengthening your character, deepening your faith, and preparing you for responsibility you could not carry before. There is purpose even in the pain you did not choose. There is growth hidden inside the disappointment you did not understand. God specializes in turning broken pieces into powerful testimonies. He does not waste wounds. He heals them and then uses them. What tried to break you will become the very thing that builds someone else through your story. Stop speaking to yourself as if your best days are behind you. Stop agreeing with the voice that says that it is too late, too hard, or too far gone. That voice is not truth. As long as you have breath, God still has plans. As long as your heart is beating, your story is still unfolding. What you survived did not end you because it was not sent to destroy you. It was allowed to develop you. You are still here because there is more in you, more growth, more purpose, more impact. God is still shaping, still guiding, still opening ways you cannot see yet. Even now, in this moment, He is working behind the scenes, aligning people, opportunities, and timing. Your life is not over. Your calling is not canceled. God is not finished with you. There comes a moment in every life when holding on becomes more painful than letting go. We often cling to familiar seasons, even when they no longer produce growth, simply because they feel safe. The old season may have shaped you, but it is not meant to define you forever. God calls you to release what was so you can receive what is becoming. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of trust that says you believe God's future is greater than your past. Many people struggle not because God has stopped moving, but because they are still living emotionally, mentally, and spiritually in yesterday. Old pain, old disappointments, old failures, and even old victories can keep you stuck. You replay moments you wish you could change, conversations you wish had gone differently, and opportunities you wish you had taken. But God never intended for you to build a future while carrying the full weight of your past. What you refuse to release will eventually limit what you can receive. Sometimes God allows things to end suddenly without explanation because explaining it too early would keep you attached. He knows that if you fully understood why it ended, you might try to fix it, revive it, or return to it. But certain seasons must close completely so that your heart can be free. Closure does not always come with answers. Sometimes closure comes with obedience. Trusting God means believing that what He removed was necessary even when it hurt. Letting go also means releasing old versions of yourself. You cannot step into a new season with an old mindset. The way you think, speak, and respond must change. Fear that once protected you can now restrict you. Habits that once comforted you can now hold you back. God is inviting you to grow beyond survival into purpose. Growth demands change, and change requires surrender. There are relationships, environments, and expectations that were only assigned to a previous season. They served their purpose, but their time is complete. Holding on out of loyalty, guilt, or fear will only delay what God wants to do next. God never asks you to release something without already preparing something better. When He asks for surrender, it is not because He wants to take from you, but because He wants to increase you. Letting go is also an internal process. You can physically move on while still being emotionally trapped. God wants to heal the parts of you that still ache when you remember the past. He wants to remove bitterness, resentment, and regret so your heart can breathe again. You cannot receive new joy while holding old pain. Healing begins when you stop reopening wounds God is trying to close. The new season requires faith, not familiarity. It requires courage to walk forward without fully knowing what comes next. But God does not call you to the unknown alone. He walks ahead of you, preparing the way. When you release the old season, you make room for fresh vision, renewed strength, and deeper peace. What lies ahead is not a repetition of what was, it is an elevation. There are moments in life when waiting feels like punishment and delay feels like denial. You prayed with sincerity, you prepared with expectation, and you moved with faith, yet nothing happened the way you thought it would. It is easy in those moments to assume that God has forgotten you or that you missed your opportunity. But delay is not always a sign of rejection. Often it is a sign of divine protection. God sees what you cannot see, and He withholds not to hurt you, but to guard you. What you thought you were ready for may have carried consequences you were not prepared to handle. God understands the full weight of what you are asking for. He sees the pressure, the responsibility, and the spiritual cost attached to it. When He delays the answer, He is not denying the blessing. He is developing the strength required to sustain it. Receiving something too early can destroy you just as surely as never receiving it at all. There are people, places, and opportunities that look good on the surface but carry hidden dangers beneath. God delays access because immediate entry would expose you to harm. You may feel frustrated watching others move ahead while you remain in the same place, but comparison blinds you to protection. What worked for someone else at that moment may have broken you. God's timing is customized to your calling, not based on someone else's progress. Delay is also a season of preparation. While you are waiting, God is refining your character, deepening your patience, and strengthening your faith. He uses the quiet seasons to teach lessons that noise and success never could. In waiting, you learn dependence. In uncertainty, you learn trust. These lessons are not optional, they are essential. Without them, the next season would collapse under its own weight. Sometimes the delay is not about you at all. God may be aligning circumstances, shifting environments, or moving people into position. He works across timelines you cannot track and in ways you cannot control. What feels slow to you is precise to him. Every piece must be in place for the blessing to function as intended. Rushing the process would result in chaos, not fulfillment. Delays also protect you from settling for less than God's best. If God answered immediately, you might accept the first open door, even if it led to compromise or limitation. Delay creates discernment. It sharpens your ability to recognize what truly belongs to you. It separates good options from God options. What is delayed often returns with greater clarity and greater peace. When you look back, you may realize that the things you once begged God for would have caused pain if he had given them to you then. The delay spared you disappointment you could not see coming. God is not slow, he is strategic. He values your future more than your impatience. What feels like a setback is often a setup, positioning you for something that will last. Trusting God in delay is difficult, but it is powerful. It means believing that even in stillness, he is active. It means knowing that silence does not equal absence. God is protecting you, shaping you, and preparing you even when nothing seems to be happening. There are seasons in life when clarity feels just out of reach. You pray, you think, you analyze, and still the answers do not come the way you hoped they would. In those moments, faith is no longer about understanding, it becomes about trust. Trusting God beyond understanding means choosing to believe that his wisdom surpasses your logic and that his plan remains intact even when your vision is limited. It is easy to trust when things make sense, but true faith is revealed when they do not. Human nature craves explanations. We want to know why something ended, why a door closed, why the timing changed, or why the path ahead looks uncertain. But God does not always explain himself before he moves. If he did, faith would be unnecessary. Faith requires surrendering the need to control outcomes and accepting that God sees the full picture while you only see a fragment. What confuses you today may protect you tomorrow. Trusting God beyond understanding also means resisting the urge to rush decisions out of fear. When answers are unclear, fear will push you to act prematurely just to feel in control, but moving without peace often leads to regret. God's guidance is not driven by panic, it is led by purpose. Learning to wait on him, even when pressure mounts, strengthens your ability to hear his direction When it truly matters, there are times when obedience will not make sense to the people around you. Others may question your choices, misunderstand your silence, or criticize your patience. Trusting God means you are willing to look foolish in the eyes of others in order to be faithful in the eyes of God. You do not need everyone to understand your path if God is the one directing it. Approval from people fades, but alignment with God brings lasting peace. Trust grows strongest in uncertainty. When everything is clear, faith is comfortable. When everything is uncertain, faith becomes courageous. God often allows confusion to strip away self-reliance. When you no longer know what to do, you learn to depend fully on Him. This dependence is not weakness. It is strength rooted in humility. It positions God to work in ways that exceed your expectations. Trusting God beyond understanding also requires releasing the outcome. You may have a vision of how things should turn out, but God's version may look different. His ways are not meant to frustrate you, but to elevate you. What He designs carries eternal value, not just temporary satisfaction. Even when His path feels unfamiliar, it leads to greater fulfillment than anything you could construct on your own. Faith does not mean ignoring reality. It means believing God is greater than it. You may not understand the delay, the detour, or the difficulty, but you can trust the one who does. Every step taken in faith, even without clarity, builds spiritual maturity. Over time, you will look back and realize that what confused you did not harm you, it strengthened you. Trusting God beyond understanding allows you to walk forward with peace, knowing that His plan is steady even when your emotions are not. Life has a way of draining the soul quietly. You can keep moving, keep working, and keep smiling on the outside while something inside you grows tired and heavy. Disappointments pile up, unanswered prayers linger, and responsibilities press harder each day. Over time, hope weakens, peace becomes fragile, and joy feels distant. This is why spiritual renewal is not a luxury, it is a necessity. God understands the weight life places on the human heart, and He offers restoration not as a one-time event, but as an ongoing work of grace. Inner restoration begins when you acknowledge the weariness instead of denying it. God is not intimidated by your honesty. He invites you to come to Him exactly as you are, exhausted, confused, and uncertain. Renewal starts when you stop pretending you are strong enough on your own and allow God to strengthen you from within. The world teaches you to push harder, but God teaches you to rest deeper. God restores what life has depleted. Where anxiety has taken over your thoughts, He brings peace that steadies the mind. Where fear has weakened your confidence, He rebuilds trust. Where sorrow has settled in your heart, He gently replaces it with hope. This restoration does not always happen instantly, but it happens intentionally. God works layer by layer, healing wounds you may not even realize are. A still open morning prayer plays a powerful role in this renewal. It recenters the heart before the day begins to demand your attention. When you start your day in God's presence, you invite His peace to lead instead of your stress. Prayer realigns your focus, reminding you that your strength does not come from your schedule or success, but from your connection to God. Even a few moments of sincere prayer can shift the atmosphere of an entire day. Spiritual renewal also reshapes how you see yourself. Life can distort your identity, causing you to define yourself by failures, losses, or the opinions of others. God restores truth. He reminds you that you are valued, chosen, and purposefully made. As your spirit is renewed, your perspective changes. You begin to see challenges as temporary and growth as possible again. The heaviness that once controlled you starts to lift. Inner restoration requires patience. Healing is rarely rushed because deep wounds require careful attention. God is gentle with the broken parts of you. He does not force change, He nurtures it. As you remain open, He replaces emotional exhaustion with quiet strength. You may not notice the shift immediately, but over time, you realize you are responding differently, thinking differently, and hoping again. Renewal does not mean the absence of difficulty. It means the presence of resilience. God does not remove every challenge, but He restores your ability to endure without losing yourself. As your spirit is renewed, you regain clarity, emotional balance, and a sense of peace that remains steady even in uncertainty. What once overwhelmed you no longer defines you because God has strengthened you from the inside out. Every new day arrives carrying an invitation from God. It is an invitation to move forward, not in fear, but in faith. Walking boldly into God's new plan does not mean you have every detail figured out. It means you trust the one who does. Boldness in faith is not loud or reckless. It is steady and confident, rooted in the belief that God is guiding your steps even when the path ahead is unfamiliar. Fear often tries to disguise itself as wisdom. It whispers that waiting is safer, that staying where you are is more comfortable, and that stepping forward is too risky. But faith requires movement. God's new plan cannot be experienced from the sidelines. At some point, you must choose obedience over comfort and courage over certainty. When God opens a new door, He does not ask you to see the entire journey, only to take the next step. Walking boldly also means letting go of the need for approval. Not everyone will understand your direction, and some may question your choices, but God never promised that obedience would be popular. He promised that it would be purposeful. When you walk in alignment with His will, you no longer need validation from people who cannot see what God has shown you. Confidence grows when you stop explaining yourself and start trusting God. Faith-driven boldness is strengthened through obedience. Each step taken in faith builds momentum. The more you obey, the more confident you become in God's guidance. Small acts of obedience prepare you for greater responsibility. God often reveals His plan gradually, increasing clarity as you move forward. Waiting for perfect understanding can keep you stuck, but moving in faith keeps you growing. Walking into God's new plan also requires patience. Bold faith does not rush the process or force outcomes. It understands that God's timing is just as important as His direction. You can be bold and patient at the same time. Patience keeps your heart grounded, while boldness keeps your feet moving. Together, they allow you to progress without losing peace. God's new plan often stretches you beyond what feels comfortable. Growth rarely happens in familiar territory. As you walk forward, you may encounter uncertainty, resistance, or moments of doubt, these moments do not mean you are off track. They mean you are expanding. God uses discomfort to develop endurance and deepen trust. Each challenge strengthens your confidence that He is with you. Walking boldly into God's plan also means expecting good things. Faith anticipates God's goodness even before it appears. It chooses hope over fear and trust over anxiety. You begin to live with expectation instead of hesitation. Even when outcomes are not immediate, you walk with assurance that God is working on your behalf. Bold faith transforms how you approach life. You no longer shrink back at uncertainty or retreat when things get difficult. You move forward with quiet confidence, knowing that God has already gone ahead of you. Each step becomes an act of worship, each decision an expression of trust. Walking boldly is not about having no fear. It is about refusing to let fear lead. God's new plan unfolds as you move forward in faith, one step at a time.